Hi everyone, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk about funding for the maple syrup sugar bush. So I've been trying to come up with a way that I could expand the sugar bush slowly without breaking the bank. So as you know, we had a baby last year. We're a very frugal family and we buy used anytime we can. Since we had the baby last year, all of our own funds have been gone into either paying for baby or for fixing up our house for an expansion to the upstairs. So we're making more space for our family, but our farm needs to grow also. And the farm is something that we would like for it to be self-reliant and not have to work a full-time job also. So he does the field work and the farming, and I pretty much take care of the animals and anything else. So we really want to grow the maple syruping. The boys have a huge interest in farming, and they've all expressed at this point that they don't have interest in going to college. They don't want to go off and learn something else. They want to learn this, and they want to stay here. So we have told them all that that is totally possible and that they can earn a living on their farm. So to show by example, I would like to grow the maple sugar bush myself. To be able to do this, I need to do stuff like maple tubing and containers and stuff that I can run on my own. So some of the things that I'm going to need to purchase real quickly here are things to get us going for this year on tubing. So it's a lot of tubing, fittings, mainline. I'll show you at the end of the video. I'll splice in some other sections, some ideas that I kind of have going on. It's coming up really fast. So I have a call to action for you. I decided to start a GoFundMe account for you, all of my viewers. If I've helped you in the past, if I have entertained you, if I have saved you money on repairs and different innovative things, consider donating to us or funding to us to grow the maple syrup. So as you know, I homeschool the children full-time, I do the farming, I run the family, and there's really no time for a part-time job. We have the belief that we had our children, that we need to watch our children, so hiring a babysitter for me to go to work isn't feasible. Grandma and Grandpa all work full-time still too. Sister works full-time, so that depletes family for sources of sending the kids off, and they can't go off and learn how to manage things here. So keeping that all in mind, I would like my viewers, and there's slightly over 5,500 of you, about 5,600, if everybody donated $4, $5, even $10 each, we could really, really grow this FundMe quickly. So long term, I'm thinking if we got enough money, we could, a couple of things we need, and I'll show you in the video. I have the supplies for a 4x8 evaporator. I don't have an arch. The arch is the part that sits on the ground or on the floor of your building. I also don't have a building. So I've looked into different sheds and things like that. Kits are very expensive, but the plans and the lumber are so much more reasonable that I could build a 4 times larger shed from a kit from Menards than buying a shed. So I've kind of factored that in also. Any money for the funds aren't going to go into purchasing tractors and equipment like that. We already have plenty of that. My little 40 tractor, you know that I made a video about that last year. He did a tune-up, did muffler, put points on it, put a new battery, put a new battery cable on it. It's still not running right. I need something that I can start myself. So that is either going to have to go into the shop or we're going to have to repair it ourselves. And you know us, we repair everything. We make videos on it because we try to teach other people. And so I've been trying to learn myself how to do these things on this tractor to get it going. It's a nice little tractor. It's not so big that I can't handle it. It's because it's a small tractor, I can also ride with like George in the backpack, but it doesn't have power steering. So that's, you know, kind of a thing about that. But it's a luxury that I am willing to live without for affordability. Long term, value-added things like maple sugar, maple cream, maple candies. All that equipment is so much money. So long-term funding, I'm looking at those things. A reverse osmosis machine for maple syrup reduces the water in the sap so that it can save on firewood and firing time. You can actually reduce it by, I think, 75 to 80% even. I don't know a whole lot about it, and getting pricing can be really hard on the new equipment. I don't want to bother the maple syrup supply people, which we're really fortunate. We're close to Sugar Bush Supplies in Mason, Michigan. So I can go and pick up anything that comes in used. I can pick up things that need repair. And because we have a local dealer, I also can save on shipping by going and picking up anything that they do have there in person. So things like that can really go a long ways. We're always very thrifty with the things that we're doing. So like I'll show you, I'm going to use a trash pump instead of a water transfer pump. I've had to order hose to run it. And we're going to do everything we can to make it an easier job for myself and the boys so they enjoy it, so they want to stay on our farm and stay with their family, to continue in this and to grow it from just a hobby or a roadside stand into something much more. So with your help, I am going to link right here a GoFundMe account, and you can cut and paste that into your browser window or click the link down below in the description. So please, everybody, watch the rest of the video, see some of the ideas that I have going around. It is going to be here very, very quickly. In the past, I've tapped trees as early as Valentine's Day, so I'm getting super excited about that. We've had warm, we've had cold, it goes back and forth. So January has been really, really funny. So now that February is here, I know it's coming up really quick, and I can still go out and get a couple of main lines or just some supplies in to do drop lines on short runs. And with long-term funding, I can grow, I can get assistance with hiring some workers if we need, things like that. So these are all things to consider, and I want to tell you in advance, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing, and don't forget to like. You know, I don't do updates on Twitter and Facebook and things like that. But maybe once this kind of all gets going, it would be kind of fun to set up a Twitter account and kind of show what's going on, what's coming and going. And like I said, like, you know, coming and going, I am, for myself, selling off some of the old maple syrup equipment, like the old tap buckets and taps, to help pay for my maple tubing and things like that. Tools can be very expensive, like there's a double-handed tubing tool, a single-handed tool, there's mainline tools, because things are all different sizes. There's taps, there's adapters for the taps, all kinds of very interesting things. One thing I'd really, really like is to be able to save enough money for my husband and I to go out to the Cornell University has education days. They call it their Maple School, and I believe his name is Steve Childs, does development and research and education on maple tubing. So one of the first things I'm going to do is just kind of get into buying some maple tubing, high tensile wire. You know, a lot of that is the reason why I decided initially that it was time to go ahead and try the GoFundMe, because just like a roll of maple high tensile wire that is non-electric for out there is almost $200. And when we have fencing needs up here at the barn area, I can't really just say, hey, I'm going to go take our money that we need for groceries to go buy wire, you know, for that. So shorter lines and things that didn't require wire is what I was initially thinking. But then you just turn around and investing in that, different size tubings and wires later on. So with your help, we're going to go forward, and we're going to start a GoFundMe, and I'm just going to gradually start getting the supplies as the money comes in to expand this year and next year, because every year you want to add a little bit more. It's going to be quite an adventure, but this is all me. This is something that I want to do, so I'm asking for your help. So thanks for watching the following video, everybody. If there are any things that I missed, you know, feel free to comment back and, you know, tell me what you think. So see you next time.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the YouTube channel.
if you're like me and you like doing maple syrup, it is getting to be that time of year. So I have got the maple sugaring fever really bad this year. As you know, last year I announced that I was pregnant partway through the maple sugaring season, and it was a lot of work going up and down hills and into the woods to do the maple syrup. This year's going to be a little different because I'm going to be doing a lot of maple sugaring with baby either sitting in his car seat on the trailer or on my back in the baby backpack. So here's some of the things that I've got going on this year. This is a old furnace door, and this is a much bigger one. This one was left here originally. They had a homemade maple syrup evaporator at the Sugar Shack in the woods, and they disassembled it. There's a pile of bricks there from their chimney, but this is the only thing that was left. They seem to have taken everything out before the auction, and for some reason the scrappers didn't go out in the woods, so this big pile was still out there. So we've saved this to retrofit a set of pans that he has, and this one I don't know what it came from. I think maybe he said at an auction it was in a pile of stuff. So this is from an Ideal furnace, and the nice thing about this, it's got your door for feeding your logs, and it's a pretty big opening, but it's also got the draft door, so you can prop this open for draft, and it's got a secondary door here for feeding bigger logs, so you can feed down low and up high. So technically, I guess it's got two draft doors. This one, this is, you know, the whole door, and then it's got a small draft here, and then here also. So real handy if you're building a homemade maple syrup evaporator. You can buy those used on Craigslist, or you can get a Vogelzang door for like a barrel stove. And I don't know if they have the doors by themselves or not. So you can get that kit, and that's about $75. So here I've got a low spot. This is all my maple syruping ideas that are going through my head today really bad. So if I talk to you about it, it will help me. I have the pigs are over there on the other side of the driveway. I have set up my maple syrup evaporator here every year. We haven't got a building set up for it yet. So he always pulls the trailer here, and I unload it off of an IBC tote on the trailer. This area has always flooded. We got in loads of rock and dirt, and he's been filling it in all the front, but we've still got some areas that still need some more filling in. This gets so tore up bringing in firewood and syrup. So these are my big trees in the yard. I believe I get 30 taps a year. This little one here isn't ready yet. He hasn't let me tap this row of trees. This one's too little. There originally was a house here, and on the other side of the driveway was the second house for this property. They both were tore down and the trees planted in their stead. So I've got a row of trees here, and they're all ready to tap this year. So probably we'll get 35 taps in the yard this year. So this area we were filling in with gravel, and then the cold set in. You know, we were digging it by hand if you were watching the videos. Digging the gravel, loading it onto a truck and bringing it up here. This year I have a bit of a problem. He had the neighbor work up the field, so I can't cross the field to that section of woods over there, so we have to go through the woods. I have a broken culvert and a couple of down trees that are blocking that roadway, so we're working on that. I have a collection of pallets to put my totes on or my barrels on in the low spots, and right now this is all the firewood I have stored up for maple syrup. This is not going to make a gallon of syrup probably. You really feed the fire. I'm going to do a few things differently this year. This is all mostly apple or cherry wood that I've been saving for smoking meat, so that won't be used, but we do have a couple of down trees on the property for filling that in. This is the trailer that I had showed you. Our welder disappears to his work and never makes it back. And last year, I actually ended up using the double axle trailer, and we decided not to use this for that reason. The IBC tote, when it's full, gets really heavy. Now this whole thing needs to be rebuilt. There's not enough cross membering to hold the weight of an IBC tote. And the way that we're doing it, it is really nice to be able to have a spot for the kids and the buckets. So that other trailer, I believe, is 16 feet. This one's maybe 10. So the bigger trailer worked out better for that. This is my tractor that I'm using for the maple syruping. It's going to need another little tune-up again this year. It never starts real great. And then I end up using his tractor. So with baby, with me, it's going to be easier to use the little tractor. So here you see I've got a double axle trailer. It holds the weight of the IBC tote really well. And it's a low step up because we empty straight into a tote. This year I might do it a little bit differently. I've been coming up with some plans about having a barrel down here with a float valve with a sump pump going up to the IBC tote. So in previous maple syrup seasons, I have done the old galvanized buckets. These hold either 2 or 2.5 gallons. They could possibly even be 3, but I think they're 2. So the old metal buckets have been dipped in a galvanized solution, which may or may not contain lead. So I've decided to move away from those. And the main thing that made me decide to do that, if you watched the videos from last year, I switched to plastic buckets because I can put a log or a heavy rock on a 5-gallon bucket that has a plastic lid on it to keep it from blowing away, because these, on a windy day, the sap blows away, the buckets blow away. So I go outside in the morning and my buckets are all over the yard and the sap's been running for hours. So instead of emptying buckets, I end up spending the time putting buckets back up. So here are, it's hard to see, these are all in storage. This is new pans and setup for a maple syrup evaporator. I bought a 2x6 or 2x8. I think it's a 2x, looks like it's 2x8. Maple syrup evaporator last year, and he wanted to build a building for me before we set it up. I didn't want it in this building because he obviously uses it for parking his tractors. So the old John Deere 2-cylinders have got to be stored indoors. He has one that has sat out, and it really bothers him that it's there. The projects that I have going on, this is a syrup pan that he picked up, and this is the cooking pan. There's actually a finishing pan. This has holes that need to be soldered up at the very top, and it happened only in that spot because they were throwing logs in. This is wood-fired. They were hitting those flues or baffles, and there's a cross support piece, and my husband had originally stored it outside, and in the process of like freezing and thawing and just moving it around, he has broke that off. So he's got to resolder that back on, and you have to use lead safe solder. So as you know, we work full time. I mean, I work on the farm full time and have the kids. So he is going to be working on this sometime in the future. You can see kind of a bright shiny spot right there is where the next support goes on. So it's important to have those on. This is the trash pump that I showed you. This is one that's brand new in the box. It looks like they were $299, and I don't remember if there's a discount on top of that also, but I am seeing used ones for sale on Craigslist for $700, $1,000. So it was really great to get those because we have low spots in the field that he wanted to pump out, and that was the original reason for buying that. So that's cheaper than buying one of those Honda water pumps. So So I've got some things stored in here. I have to kind of walk around, but here's my old wood splitter. I wanted him to get it out today because it is 47 degrees later today. It's about 34 right now and sunny. There's no wind. It's super, super nice. So this is the pan that I have been cooking on, and it's an old style flat pan, and I just put it on the cement blocks and make a homemade evaporator out of it every year with cement blocks that keep on. This is the other finish pan for that, and I believe it is 4 by 8 and 4 by 4. So it's a 4 by 12 arch. I'm almost 6 feet tall and I'm standing close to it, so I'm pretty sure that's 4 by 8. And then of course I've got all my new pans. So he figured as the maple syruping gets bigger, we can cook it on the big pan and then use the evaporator up by the house for finishing. So these are some of the things that I've got going on. I've got my IBC tote here. I always store it inside to keep it clean. And he actually put a hydraulic pump on top of it, so I need to clean it. I always clean it out with fresh bleach. And if you leave it in the sun, it will clean it and sanitize it as if you were putting hot water in it. So I really like to do that. The maple syrup runs are unpredictable. Today and tomorrow would be a possible maple syrup run, but if you tap too early and tap into frozen wood, then you can end up drying out your taps early so that you don't get to a March tap run. So the extra 1 or 2 days isn't worth it. You want a stretch of like a week long of freeze at night, thaw in the morning. I really have a great time doing this. It's not so much work to me as doing some other chores around the farm, but I still have my other chores to do too. So I do have to keep that in mind because I've got the kids, I'm nursing the baby, you know, there's diaper changes, meals, on top of feeding the animals. So, you know, I've got manure pens to clean out and things like that and get that done before spring. And of course, like every March, it's the time of year to get chickens ordered. So we kind of go right from maple syrup to growing small animals. And I want to make a run to the maple syrup supplier so that I can get another roll of hose so that I can start making my leads or my drops for the trees. And that's going to require you know, like a 500 or 800 foot roll of the tubing. I need taps and I need connectors, a 4-way connector. And that's something different that I'm doing this year with the drop line. So I just want to have it done ahead of time so I'm not doing it out in the woods. And the maple syrup tubing tools are really expensive. So today I'm going in the house and I'm looking online for maybe some discount. I don't care if it's from China. It seems to be it's all manufactured there and assembled here anyway. So I'm going to look into that, or even possibly some homemade methods. Small loft up here above a workbench, and I am normally storing my barrels up there, but as you know, I was pregnant at the end of last season, so we only just stored them down here. And the top ones get all dirty and dusty, but they stay stacked. I bleach them and clean them before I put them away. I prefer to just dip them in a bleach bath, and I like to use a stock tank for that. So you can look up the videos last year about that. I had just my old maple syrup, any box will work, but I pull all my taps off of my tubing at the end of the year, which is a real pain in the butt, I'll tell you. I think with this year I might do it a little bit different for cleaning the taps out, but then I just store my taps in an old coffee can. These are the Sapmeister stainless steel taps, and they make them rolled, or they make them this way, or they make them with a hook. And this is 5/16. I have found that the way I was taking them off, this is more or less a washer. And this was coming off of several of them. So that was a problem. And they're $1.90 a piece, or no, it's $48 for a package of 25, I think. The new maple syrup tubing, you can use these on them, and I like them fine for the buckets, but you can pick up plastic spiles, taps, they're also called, for anywhere from 29 to 39 cents a piece. You buy them by the 100, and it goes, you can use up that supply really fast, especially when you're putting them in a line and you're doing, you know, 2 to 4 taps a tree. But then the 4-way connectors, I have to actually basically get double of those, because however many trees I have, I might have multiple taps in that one tree. You know, he does fuel oil. This is his busy time of year, but he has brought home a couple fuel oil tanks to do some small finishing pans for me. So these can be turned on their side. You cut out the top and you put your pans right on top. And a lot of people are using pans from a food supply. And then I've got a third one over here. So you can make a homemade maple syrup evaporator with either 2 tanks or 1. And I'll put in some pictures that I found on Google searches just to give you an idea what I'm talking about. But it's really neat and really handy if you have a way to cut through it, which you could do with just a grinder. It's not too complicated. So we've walked around to the opposite side of the barn, and last year for Christmas I got my log splitter, and tomorrow's going to be a warm day. Today's about 37, tomorrow's supposed to be 45, and for a couple of days. I've got some old wood to use up. So Trey and I, he's really great at doing this kind of stuff. This is all frozen solid together. So it'll thaw out a little bit today, but mostly tomorrow. And I've been cleaning up this area. This is just where he's thrown brush. Brush has grown up. You see we've got grapevines growing up the side. So it's a really good time of year to clear this out of here and not have to try and get this like I did last year. The pile was 4 times the size. And I just finished doing the maple syrup and never got back to this because he buries my wood splitter in the shop. And the trailer dolly I got for the wood splitter really isn't tall enough for it. So it was in storage a lot of the year. I never finished this all up. So way out this way, up on the top of that hill, is the pile of gravel. The kids and I are going to go for a little walk today and see if the pile is thawed at all, see if we can shovel it, because I'd like to at least get a small load brought up to fill in that hole. And the rest of this area, he's just got to get this backhoe going to do that. Also, one of my milk tanks for doing maple sap is all the way out there, and it needs to be moved up to the house so that I can empty the IBC tote into this. Now we're doing so much more maple sap and maple syrup than we have in previous years that I need a secondary or a 3rd or 4th storage tank. So I'm bringing in some blue barrels for some areas where it is on a steep slope and it'll just be easier to transfer it. I'm going to be bringing in some more IBC totes for the slope area because it's going to be easier to just go through the woods than to get stuck in the field and pump that out. A lot of people use a Honda transfer pump, and a new one is $460 to like $580. I really am trying to keep our costs down while we're growing the operation as much as possible. So another thing that I'm doing differently this year, more pigs in the barn. So another thing I'm doing differently this year is I'm using a trash pump. You can get a trash pump for a lot less money, and you can modify this with a wheel kit, or I can set it right on the trailer. This is an adapter, just a PVC adapter, going from 4-inch to, I believe, 2-inch, or possibly 3. And it will suck out an IBC tote or a blue barrel really fast. And the IBC totes I'm buying are 275 to 325 gallons. I'm going to go for the smaller ones because it's just what I prefer. I want to keep everything uniform and
just make it easier for me to deal with in the end. So this is a Master Quality Power, it says, and I picked these up at Farm and Home in our area, and I actually drove several hours away to pick up some extras. They were marked down on clearance because they were getting rid of them. This is 6.5 horsepower. The ones I was looking online for just transfer pumps were 1.5 to, I believe, 2.5 horsepower. Okay, yeah, it's 3-inch. So he's got a 3-inch to 2-inch adapter on this right now. And I found 2-inch hose for a great deal. So I am making a run to Menards to get that ordered because it can only be ordered online. And this is gas powered. So that's a bad part for me because I always have a hard time with my shoulder pulling these pull starts. That was one of the hardest thing about the log splitter for me, which it starts pretty good. And even our power washer that I got, I have a hard time with the pull starts. We just try to buy the best rec gas possible. So we've got a 55-gallon barrel of that because it definitely helps a lot with the starting. The ethanol just damages all that stuff so fast. So that I do recommend that for you because that since we've switched to that in a lot of things, it's made a huge difference. So these are just some thoughts on maple syrup that I've got going on right now. I am going to take my cans of pink spray paint and put baby in his backpack, and we're going to go for a little walk and see how things are going out in the woods. We will check on the gravel pile to see if I can shovel up some gravel to bring it up here. But every little bit that I can do to keep my mind busy now helps because I have a totally addictive personality that it doesn't matter what I'm on, I get hooked. I'm an all-in kind of girl. So when I order chickens, I order 100 chickens or I order 200 chickens. I didn't start right out with 5 or 6 chickens. So I do a lot of things very large scale when I get into it. And this year I want to add maybe 100 taps to the woods, and I want to add those 100 taps on lines instead of doing buckets. So these are just things that I've been comparing prices and supplies for that. I'm totally hooked on watching YouTube, which is great because baby's getting some mommy time, and it's been really cold the last couple days. Yesterday the snow kind of melted, and it's made it nice so that I can kind of get out and look at the situation in the woods and plan things. So that's just what's going on for today, and yeah, we'll let you in on the woods here in a little bit.